Ladies and gentlemen, you're rocking with a GOAT. Kenn Dowell giving you motivation for growth. 2 toes down, he keep it realer than most. He do it for the culture, that's always the goal. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.
What's up, everybody? You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Kenn Dowell. This is the place where I bring art, culture, politics, and business all together, and I do it every Sunday right here on this channel. But when I'm not shooting this podcast, I am the owner of Strategic Resources, where we specialize in political campaigns, government, and public relations. We've been doing it right here in this state for over 25 years, and I've met some very amazing people along the way, and I want to make your next move a strategic move, and this show gives me an opportunity to do that. So if this is something you think you're interested in, I need you to do one thing. I need you to hit that subscribe button, smash the notification bell, and leave a comment. But today we're going to talk about somebody, and I got somebody new. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? None other than our Congresswoman. We got Congresswoman Shontel Brown in the house today, y'all. And the Congresswoman is going to talk to us a little bit about all the things she's been doing in D.C. and what's going on. And what we did was we went and got a little snippets of some things she's been doing. So check this out.
For Congresswoman Shontel Brown, it has been a whirlwind of experiences.
I rise as the newest representative for Ohio's 11th Congressional District. I would like to thank the great people of my district for placing their trust in me. Madam Speaker, the Congressional Black Caucus is often called the conscience of the Congress, and for good reason. The bipartisan infrastructure bill signed into law today by President Biden is a historic win for our economy, our communities, and the people of my district and from across this nation.
Congresswoman Brown here. Let's talk about internet affordability.
Hi everyone, it's Congresswoman Shontel Brown. As the COVID pandemic has shown, it is critical for all of us to get affordable, quality health coverage we need.
How the bipartisan infrastructure law will accelerate last year's record job. Speaker, since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last month, I have been overwhelmed with powerful testimonies from my colleagues, family, and friends about their reproductive health journeys. Today, the House will take a historic step towards restoring American manufacturing leadership by voting to go to conference on the Competes Act. This bold bill makes much-needed investments in research, innovation, and manufacturing that will ensure American can caucus colleagues for highlighting the significance of Juneteenth during today's special order hour. Madam Speaker, the date was Monday, June 19, 1865. The location, Galveston, Texas. I applaud President Biden for having the foresight to propose the creation of an Advanced Research Project Agency for Health, also known as ARPA-H, an agency tasked with driving breakthroughs in cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and other difficult diseases.
Congresswoman Shontel Brown to the program. Sounds good. All right. All right, y'all. Whew, there's a lot of people in here enjoying your company today,
Congresswoman. Here. I feel the love. I feel the love.
Yeah, congratulations on everything. We're happy to have you back.
Thank you.
So how's everything in D.C.?
It's insane. I think you saw one of the first agenda items was electing a Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
15 rounds of votes to do that.
Yes.
So it started off pretty rocky, pretty chaotic, and pretty confusing, but we're coasting along.
Well, people was following. I know I was following, and you had a bunch of people in the district following. It was just amazing how long it took and how many votes it took to get through that.
Well, the Democrats were 212 strong. We were unified and ready to get to work, so it wasn't us.
All right. That's true. That is true. We found out it wasn't the Democrats. So let's talk about that since we over into that. How is everything now? You have a new speaker in the House and you have new leadership. So how does that now, which, I think coming from your perspective is pretty much new to you because you're new there. So you can't get caught up in, well, I remember how it used to be because everything now is how it's going to be. So how is that for you coming in there with all of that?
Well, it is quite different, but one thing that I'm encouraged by is the fact that we have the same majority. Republicans have the same majority as we had in the 117th Congress. And we were able to achieve a lot in a bipartisan way. Now, they still have yet to put forth some serious legislation, so we're waiting for that. But if you know me, I am still that cautiously optimistic person. So I'm hoping for the best.
And how's Mr. Jeffries, your new leader?
Mr. Jeffries, that's my guy. He's cool peeps. He's a good leader. I think it's a good time to be able to transition leadership when we're in the minority because there's not as much pressure to be able to actually deliver, if you will. Speaker Pelosi, Speaker Emeritus, she was the best speaker this nation has ever seen and was able to deliver so many things for the people of the United States of America. And so she is still a force and still continues to be, her presence still continues to lead the caucus but kind of behind the scenes and helping in kind of like a mentorship type of way. So her presence is still very heavy, influential, and impactful. So much respect to Speaker Pelosi, but Leader Jeffries is carving his own path, and I'm excited to see what he and Catherine Clark and Pete Aguilar will do when we get back into the majority in 2024.
Well, I see you got your guy still involved in there.
Oh, yeah, Whip Clyburn.
Whip Clyburn, so he's still there. I guess didn't make him any weaker and kind of made him maybe even stronger, I guess you were saying somewhere, right?
He continues to, just be that leader and that force. I mean, we think about the fact that we are coming up on the 13th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. His hand was in that. When you think about him actually being the person who put Joe Biden on the pathway to actually become the president, he was the force behind that. So the level of respect and his engagement has not diminished at all. And I think, to your point, he just continues to remain a powerful and influential leader, not only in the Democratic caucus, but I think in the country as a whole.
So we stay in D.C. a little bit and on that kind of track. Speaker McCarthy, I think, wrote something recently about the fact that he was denouncing what President Donald Trump is saying. He wants people to come down and protest the fact that he may be getting arrested. And the last time Donald Trump gave out that edict to the public, they stormed the Capitol.
Right.
So I can imagine some of the people down there. So what's the thoughts about that? And I know you probably hasn't been back since, but I imagine that isn't a threat I guess nobody would take lightly anymore, right? So I think that's very serious.
It is very serious. I find former President Donald Trump's rhetoric to be extremely dangerous, not only to the safety and welfare of people, but just to this country as a whole. The fact that you have McCarthy and Pence that are kind of still towing the line.
Pence was the same way.
Yeah,
right.
They're defending him, but trying to denounce, some of his rhetoric, but they have yet to display the full level of courage that I think is required to get this country back on track and to really just tell the truth. That's really what this comes down to, just telling the truth. So I can say from my vantage point, not having lived through January 6th, but having lost some colleagues because they didn't want to return after the January 6th, they just decided they weren't going to run again. And then having a whole new crop of freshmen come in to the tune of 70 folks. There are a lot of people who weren't there. So I don't know if they are as in tune to the reality of the dangers of the rhetoric that is still being perpetrated by Donald Trump. So I'm on guard. I'm always very sensitive because I have colleagues that still talk about it, and you can still feel the energy in the chambers when certain things occur. Even during the time of the speaker vote, when we first returned and they removed the metal detectors, it was kind of unnerving because you don't know.
They removed them.
Yeah, the metal detectors to the chambers have been removed. They had been there since I had gotten there. That was always something. So you know, when you have folks who are in committee meetings talking about whether they can bring their weapon into a committee meeting.
I heard that too. I saw that. I thought that was like, are you kidding me? Really?
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's real down there. Like
Right.
it's not for play. Like it's serious. And so, you know, you are a little bit guarded when you go to work and you have people that are talking about bringing their weapons into a committee hearing. Natural resources of all things is nothing natural about a gun. But, you know, I guess it depends on who you talk to.
All right, so as it relates to, let's talk a little bit about this debt ceiling, because I know everybody is really talking about how the thing that happened with the banks and fear for the banks folding and interest rates are going up, home buying and real estate having issues there. Well, what's the future? How do you see, and what are they saying in D.C. as it relates? Should the folks who have money in the bank be running to the bank, taking it out, or should they be throwing it in credit unions? What's your thought on it?
Well, I don't think we need to run and take our money out of the bank. I think when you consider what President Biden, his budget actually reduces the deficit. I don't want to misquote the number, but he is putting forth a plan that will actually continue to protect Medicare and Social Security and reduce the deficit while we're still waiting on the GOP's proposed budget. So we know, if you watch the State of the Union, President Biden, I don't care what nobody says, I think he handled those folks on the other side of the aisle quite well.
Yeah.
Very adept, very, and he was kind of cool with it. He was like, oh, okay, so we have no problems here. No, we're all going to be protecting Social Security, but we know that's not the case.
They talked their way into that one.
Yeah. So, but again, as Leader Jeffries like to say, shamelessness is their superpower. Like they will lie to your face about anything, so you can't. It's hard to take their word. It's hard to take them at their word, but at least it's on record, and millions of people saw it.
So let me ask you a question on that. Let's stay on that point for a hot second. What was the mood like in that room that day? That had to be a little different, I think, compared to most, especially with the new speaker sitting behind things and that kind of thing. What was the mood like in there?
You know what? I have some amazing colleagues, and so we still sit. We still pretty much sit on our side of the aisle. There were some that kind of were on the Republican side, but I was around my colleagues and friends, so we were in good spirits, and the energy for us was great because I think it was one of the best speeches that the president delivered. A little intense. It's always a little intense. I shouldn't say always, but even the last time there were COVID-19 protocols, so everyone wasn't even able to attend the last year's State of the Union address.
That's correct.
Yep. And so this one was a little bit more jovial, if you will, because everybody was able to come who wanted to come. We were on the floor, you know, just kind of like just great camaraderie, you know, ready to hear what the president had to say, having some idea of what he was going to talk about. But the way he delivered it, I think, was spot on. And a lot of us felt like it was one of the best speeches we've ever heard in the chambers and given in recent history.
So I want to take a little stab, because I got to take a little stab.
Okay.
I'm going to take a little stab at D.C., and that is on Vice President Kamala Harris. It's sort of like people are saying she's MIA right now.
Well, no, I don't think well, first of all, in the 117th Congress, what people failed to remember, while we had 50-50, a 50-50 split, she was the tiebreaker. So she couldn't be out, you know, doing stuff, because if we have a vote in the tie, she got to come in and break that tie.
So y'all keeping Kamala on hold.
They was keeping Kamala on hold during the 117.
She can't go nowhere. She has to always sit there in case we need you. You can't go too far.
Yeah, wow. So, you know, and I think I've said this before, and I think we may have oversold that majority thing, you know, right? When we had the 50-50 plus her vote, we see how much we were able to accomplish, but we also saw some of the things that we weren't able to get done, like voting rights and things like that, even with the majority. So now we've lost the majority in the House. We do have an actual majority in the Senate, but it's not to the level that we need to get all the things that we want, because the people can use the Senate can use the filibuster. Seems like anytime they get ready,
correct.
Right? And so that's why I think in the 117th, you know, she may not have been as outside as people like, and she wasn't outside as much as people wanted to see her outside, but I think she's doing more. I think you'll see more of her, especially as we get into a position of getting ready for the 2024 election.
Well, see, and that's the issue now, and that's my point. My point is that during the Obama era, and I know people always don't compare me to blah, 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 but during that era, he made Joe Biden seem to be a cool kind of guy. All right, he was just cool hanging with you, and you vice president, and he gave him that. He empowered him, and that's what made him easier to come over to African Americans. And I think we're Democrats, and this is not a slack at Joe Biden. This is a slack at Democrats. I think Democrats make that mistake because we still got that old white man mentality a little bit. And what I mean by that is that he should be pushing her out there because we should know this now. When she come out now, it's going to be like, oh, it's election time, and now you're pushing Kamala at us. And I think that I hope it's something that they work on. I hope it's something that they fix, but that's the feel. And if you're listening out there, that was my strategic tip to y'all. Y'all should have really got going with Kamala a lot earlier. You got to empower her because now we kind of stuck with, is it going to be Biden or who's our next nominee if it's not him? And if it's not him, did we do enough to empower Kamala to be the natural person who we'll be looking at? So that's the little politics piece of that. We're going to keep it moving if you don't mind. Or you want to rebuttal? You got something to say about that?
I think she's going to be well prepared. I think, again, people have to consider the context and the time that she has served in the 117th and think about the numbers, because it really boils down to the numbers. We only had a 50-50. It was 50-50 split and during the 117. So we needed her on deck. You know, when those
point is she's doing the work.
Yeah, she was doing the work and helping deliver real results. And so we cannot neglect that. And I think I appreciate you bringing up that point. And I think that we have to remind how important it was for her to be present in D.C. Because so much was on the line.
Okay. All right. So we're going to bring you closer on out of D.C. a little bit and go. Let's talk about what's happening with these railroads, man. You see these railroads are just like falling apart all over the place. And I feel, I don't want to say I feel sorry because I don't want 1,000 people writing me about that. But man, that company is taking a beating out here, man. They can't win for losing. There was even an accident over in Collinwood. Did you hear about that one?
I did.
And it didn't have nothing to really do with the tracks, but the truck driver ran into the train. It's like, y'all just can't catch a break, man.
That was crazy.
It's just like craziness. And with the complaints and everything that's going out of East Palestine over there, Palestine, I believe how they pronounce it. What's going on and what's the buzz in D.C. about that? And you know, people are really a little upset with the president because they felt he should have came there by now and that kind of thing. And I know you don't speak for the White House, and I don't expect you to, but what's the thoughts or your thoughts on that? And that's really close to home. Well, pretty close. Right.
So I had a chance to speak to Senator Shontel Brown as well as the CEO, and I can tell you our Ohio delegation is fully holding Norfolk Southern accountable, right? That is, we're going to make sure that they do everything to get East Palestine back clean and holding them accountable for all of the damage that they have done, testing, all of those things. What I'm encouraged by, shout out to one of our newest members, Representative Sykes. She's on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. So she and Bill Johnson have been working hard. They've got some legislation that they're already proposing. I signed on to the legislation. There is a companion bill on the Senate side. Senator Shontel Brown is leading the way there. And so I think what we're experiencing was in kind of an influx of awareness. Like once the thing, because these, it's unfortunate, but the reality is that these derailments are not uncommon.
Really?
They probably occur more frequently than we would be aware of.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that has been part of the problem. The regulations were rolled back during the Trump administration. And so now we're doing what we can to really enforce and implement some laws to create safer environment. So one of the things people have talked about as it relates to this particular incident, they said it was preventable. I think that there were the signals that notify the conductors when things are overheating, the number of rail cars, the number of people operating the rail cars. Those are some of the simple things that we can really put legislation behind and hold these companies accountable and make sure that they are safer. As it relates to the White House, I appreciate you giving me that grace. I do not speak for the White House, but what I have learned since being in D.C. is that because these things happen and there were no fatalities. You know, we sent in the people who were most equipped and expertise to be able to deal with it. So you had Administrator Regan come in, you had the Transportation Director, Secretary rather, Buttigieg come in. Those are the people who can actually get stuff done. We you know, so we need to, again, kind of take a step back and really think about who can actually get something done. It would have been nice optics if the president would have come, but it would, candidly speaking, would not have changed the outcome of what these administrators and directors and secretaries are already implementing and putting in place.
And that's pretty much what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know what y'all expect. So, well, no disrespect to Mr. President, I don't want him to go out there and fall over something.
You better shut up. You gotta leave my president
Tripping
alone.
over, walking over, and trip over something. So no, I'd rather him do his thing.
Yeah.
You know, do your thing. And so I was pretty good with that. And you said it was a lot of secretaries and folks down there trying to get it done.
I mean, the top level folks. I mean, Secretary Buttigieg, Michael Regan, he's the EPA director. This is an environmental problem. You want the top guy in the Environmental Protection Agency to be handling a situation like this. You want the top guy in Transportation and Infrastructure. And they were on the ground and actually, you know, taking care of business and seeing how they can help. The governor was
out there with his boot. You see the governor got a boot on.
I saw the governor. I saw them, you know, in the house drinking some water. You know,
you know what? You brought it up. I'm gonna say something. It looked like Mike DeWine was scared half to death when they handed him that glass. He was like, "My turn." Like, oh, I said this water good. He drunk it though. I give him credit. I was like, "Woo, boy." Yeah. That was a big one there, Governor. We give you peace for that one.
I mean, they're. I mean, I think, you know, when you consider all those things, I think, you know, they're doing the best that we can with what we have right now to hold the company accountable and make sure that we restore East Palestine back to its rightful place.
So you are doing something in the district. You guys are having a meeting. You got some folks coming. I believe Councilwoman Jenny Spencer and a few others putting together a meeting to talk about, I guess, safety with the railroads, you know?
So yes, Jenny Spencer, I love Jenny Spencer, and she has been absolutely a phenomenal addition to the council. And so I'm looking forward to working with her and partnering with her to make sure all of our communities are safe. This is a collaborative piece. I mean, we need the federal, the state, and the local leadership to deal with these types of issues.
Now, on that also, J.D. Vance, I believe, signed on with that. So Sherrod and J.D. and everybody's trying to do what they can to kind of clean that whole thing up.
Because this should not be looked at through a partisan lens. This is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is a human safety, safer communities issue. And so we have to stop putting politics above the people and start putting people over politics. And I'm happy to see that that's happening as it relates to this matter.
So let's talk about the ladies that you do have, your two African-American colleagues, Beatty, yourself, and you have new Miss Sites. Three of you guys, how are you guys getting along and working down there?
We get along great. We work together. We sit together. We convene a lot. And while we are the three sisters, right, we cannot forget the dean of the entire delegation of Ohio, but also the longest serving woman in the nation's history of the Congress in both chambers. My friend, Marcy Captor.
That's correct.
I'm Marcy. We love her. She has been keeping us together and making sure that we're all, you know, keeping these priorities. Like, she's big on the environment. If you know Marcy, she is like the queen of the Great Lakes. And so this is a fight that is of great interest to her. So we have 4 dynamic women. I'll tell you a little funny story. If you ever watch when we give those speeches, the Speaker of the House usually says, "For what purpose does the gentle lady rise from Ohio?" Well, one day it was Marcy, myself, and Amelia on the floor getting ready to give floor speeches. So I said, when they say, "What purpose does the gentle lady rise?" let's all stand up. Because we're all from Ohio.
Right.
And so he looked, and the guy was really confused because he didn't realize that we were all from Ohio. So that was funny. So we were all on the floor, and he was like, he looked over to the guy like, "What's going on?" He's like, "They're all from Ohio." And so he ended up having to call us by name instead of going by state.
Excellent.
But that was nothing that's not normal, you know, for you to have 3 women from one state all at the same time is a rare thing. And so if we would have had Joyce, it would have just been the full gamut. And we have to include Greg Lansman. But we all get along well. We get along great. I love my Ohio delegation.
Well, let's speaking on that before we jump in a little bit of politics before we end this. You took over Marcy Captor's old office on the west side now. So you have your office extended out west. So you have an office out there.
Yep.
and picking up some of the constituents over there. You
That's right.
find in your time being there, is it any much of a difference? What was the biggest difference you find in dealing with the new West Side that you done picked up?
I would say the issues are relatively the same. You know, most of the issues that we've been experiencing vary from IRS to passports to, you know, sometimes people just don't know where to go to get specific resources. And so we find ourselves being a conduit to say, okay, that's not necessarily us, but you need to call your state representative, you need to call your city council person. So managing those calls, and it's not, I don't think it's as intense as the east side. I feel like the needs are a little bit more demanding on the east side, but that could just be because I'm much more familiar with the east side. And but I think the heavier influx of calls still come in from the east side.
Okay.
But the
Is
people
it
are-
a
the people are
different
the
type
same.
of call?
No, I would say not. I have the good fortune of having an amazing staff that handles that most of the time. So I don't get to interact with the constituents as often as I used to. But even for me, when I get those requests, I get far more requests from East Side folks because traditionally the 11th Congressional District has always been known to serve the East Side of Cleveland
correct.
and the East Side suburbs. And so I think people are starting to get more acclimated to the fact that we're there. And as we spend more time there, I think the influx of calls will increase.
So, Congresswoman, let me ask you, as it relates to the people that you serve in, hold on, let me back that up because there's one other question. Two questions in that. The question I really want to ask is as it relates to the post office, because you're having lots of complaints on the east side as well as the west side about what's going on with the postal services and the theft that's going on in the post office. Is there anything or any changes in D.C. you guys are doing to do anything about that?
Well, we had an oversight hearing as it relates to the Postal Service. And so we are aware of some of these issues and have started implement oversight to try to mitigate some of those challenges. But we passed legislation during the 117th Congress to try to help the Postal Service get more employees, help them with the level of resources they had to maintain to get their pensions, and in addition to that, the training. And so we're doing our part now. You know, we're in an amazing time because during this Biden administration, when you think about it, we've created 12 million jobs, over 12 million jobs, in addition to the 300,000 that we just added last month. So I say that to say there's no shortage of opportunities, but people are working. We've got the lowest unemployment right now in our nation's history, and that includes for Black and brown people, like record lows. And so getting people into these positions to actually do the work is probably the hardest part right now because there's so many promising opportunities available, good paying jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree. So just gotta increase the pipeline of workforce development, and we're doing that too.
So I do know that they had talked about trying to add more people in the field as a way of security to kind of put more eyes out there for the guys and people, because that's the issue why they're not. People, the job is dangerous, man.
Yeah.
But any service-oriented job today
On the
is
front
just
lines.
it's just dangerous going in some of these communities. Whether you're just going to check the light bill or check the gas lights or any of that, it's almost really dangerous. So I know you're on tight schedule, so I'm going to keep it moving because I do want to ask you this. What are some of if there were, let's pick out one or two really good achievements you want to say, hey, you know what, I was able to do this, and we can really say affect the district right here that you want to mention real quick?
Well, you know, my proudest moment, vote for the bipartisan infrastructure law, that's going to have decades of implications for our community. And the immediate impact right now is broadband internet service. We talked about during the pandemic, it was no longer a luxury, that became a necessity. This Congress and administration have put forth an affordable connectivity program, $29.99 vouchers, making the internet virtually free for those who need or want it. So I'm very proud of that. The removal of lead pipes, you know, that's a big issue here in the city of Cleveland. They're going to be removing the lead pipes over the next 5 to 10 years, and so replacing them so that we can have safer, healthier communities. Then you think about the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act is something that I'm really proud about because we were able to cap insulin drug prices at $35 a month, which led to two pharmaceutical companies to reduce their prices so that everybody can benefit from the legislation that we passed via the IRA. So those are two things that I'm super proud of. But if I could throw in a third, I would say the CHIPS and Science Act, because in mid-Ohio, you know, there's a $20 billion Intel project. It's going to have residual impacts right here in Northeast Ohio, creating more job opportunities and boosting our economic growth. So, I mean, if we would have just accomplished one of those things, that would have been historic. But we did 1, 2, 3. And before I got there, the American Rescue Plan, which was a shot in the arm, that got the shots in the arm to get us back on the road to recovery from the pandemic. So this now in this 118th Congress and moving forward, it's going to be all about implementation of those historic investments and laws that we were able to pass during the 117.
Yeah, I got a question from the ministers.
Okay.
Who asked the question that said that how could or churches in general be more involved in trying to help getting out information or getting playing a role in what's going on versus just when it's time to come around for voting? You know, they do. We sort of go to the churches and ask them about voting, but they were saying how could they get more opportunities if so?
I love that. So the past couple Sundays, I've been visiting a number of churches, and I noticed they have announcements.
Yes.
During their service, that they could bless us with the opportunity to promote some of the great work that we've been doing during their announcements or at the end of their service. We can keep them brief, 2 minutes or less, and they, you know, we can update the people on some of the things that we've been able to achieve. And so we're also going to be sending information to our churches where we have relationships via email, and they can update their congregations on the work that we're doing so that they know what we've been able to accomplish since they've sent me to Washington.
So I got one last question. I know Kim's standing over there like, you gotta go, you gotta go. So I'm going to just keep going. So I'm going to ask my last question because I wrote all my questions down.
We get to your last one.
My last question is and everybody want to know, 2024 is coming back around. People feel like Ohio is being let out or, you know, wrote off as a place that's not, with all the congressional folks we do have and all of that. Any thoughts, or is it we still a little early on how you think that's going to play off? And are you going to be our fearless leader to lead us through that coming 24? Because somebody has to take the helm in Ohio. So what do you think?
Well, listen, I am hyper-focused on 2024, getting our lines drawn, number one. Bill, we don't even know what our lines look like. The 15 congressional members that we do currently have, we don't know what our maps will be. So it puts us in a precarious position. But because of that, I am, you know, my heart is always with getting out the vote. So you can trust me and count on me to still lead the charge whenever needed or necessary. So I'll be working with our folks across the 11th congressional district to make sure that we continue to deliver votes for Ohio.
Well, Congresswoman, I appreciate you coming out on my program. It's always a pleasure. And like we end all our programs, we get you an opportunity to look right there in that camera right there, that show camera. You can say whatever you want. If there's some information you want to get out, something special information, let me know. I'm going to put links in the description on how you can contact the Congresswoman at any of her offices. And Congresswoman, go ahead.
I just want to thank you. This is a great opportunity. Listen, I want to thank the people who sent me to Washington to represent Ohio's 11th congressional district. I am delivering on my campaign promises, doing everything that I can to help us continue to recover from this pandemic, fighting for jobs and justice and health care. And so if you want to know what I'm doing, it's really easy. I'm going to trust Kenn to put all of my social media links on this program so you can follow me, keep in touch with me, let us know what's going on, and you might see me in your neighborhood soon. Thanks so much. Peace.
Excellent. Thank you for coming out. This is our last episode. Congresswoman Brown is rounding out Women's Month for March, and this is going to be our last episode for March. So stay tuned.
Happy Women's History Month.
This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.